ladies and gentlemen, if you want genuine music that'll come right back home like a bad quarter, suffuse your system like strychnine whiskey, ramify your whole constitution like the measles, go right down like Brandreth's pills, and stand out on your hide like the pin feather pimples on a pickled goose. If you want all this, then smash your piano and invoke the glory-beaming banjo. Mark Twain, 1865.
Folks. Thanks for coming out tonight, and I also want to say what a wonderful show Pete and Joan did, and I was busy futzing with a microphone when you all were on with them, but I've known those guys since the early 70s, so, and they just sounded great, so let's have another hand. One more time for Pete and Joan. It's ragtime time. Or it's ragtime, depending on how you want to say that, on the old banjo show. You guys love the banjo. You must to be putting up with a whole night of banjo music. My God. That's good news. And this is a tune that I learned from a fiddle player. It's called The Stone's Rag. Did Pete say something about tuning? Banjo players?
Norman Blake fans here tonight? I thought so. This is a little medley that starts with a Norman Blake tune, and I saw the Down from the Mountain show, the Oh Brother Where Art Thou show, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago at Carnegie Hall. And as much as Norman has been a star to all of us, I think he's sort of gained a little more mass popularity thanks to that movie and his singing and playing in there. And so I saw him at Carnegie Hall, and 3 days later I saw him down in scenic Greenwich Village, and he was playing a club down there and filled the place. You know, it was a 300-seat place, and it was just packed to the rafters to see him, which is just great to see. And, you know, Norman does a little part of the show where the people are completely revved up, and he does a part of the show where he's doing songs about death, destruction, and mayhem. People getting killed, you know, a lot of those old ballad sort of things. And after every one of those songs, people would be going, Norman, Norman. And, you know, so, geez, these guys are really into this. So it's a good time for Norman these days. And this tune is actually kind of in that lonesome, depressed, I'm going to shoot myself kind of mood. It's so popular in country music and bluegrass these days. Now it's called Jeff Davis, and then I put it together with a couple of other tunes that I wrote, one of which is called Fort Monroe and Danville Days. did a workshop today. I want to thank all you workshop folks, some of whom traveled from New Mexico to be here today. So thanks a lot for coming out. We had a great time. And one thing I was mentioning is something I realized. I did a show in New York State last week. And right in the middle of like the second tune, I realized I haven't breathed, taken a breath in about 3 minutes. And I was just and everything sort of fell apart for a second. Because you can't think about breathing while you're playing. So if I pass out during the show, you'll know what happened. It's something I've been playing for 43 years, and just last week I realized, I don't breathe when I play. So if I start turning blue, just throw something at me. Okay. Okay, here comes a Celtic medley, if we have any Celtic fans out there. Well, there are 3 of you. That's good. Okay, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay. And Lord of the Banjo. I'm going to get one of those things, I was inspired to put this medley together because I've been doing this last few years. They have a banjo festival in Longford, Ireland. And Pete's been there a few times. Pete and Andy both been there. Pete and Joe, I'm sorry. And it's really an amazing thing. You go to this little town in Ireland and everyone's carrying banjo cases and talking about Deerings and Gibsons and flanges and stretcher bands and tone rings and things like that. And it's sort of like the Night of the Living Dead, Come join us, play the banjo, It's that kind of a thing. So I'm going to do a medley of 4 tunes, actually. The first is a Celtic version of a tune that's played here a lot in the States called St. Anne's Reel. Drowsey Maggie, the great Celtic tune, and then Red-Haired Boy and Red-Haired Lass, just for the opposing points of view. it's time to mellow it out with a nylon-strung banjo. With your permission, of course. There's a whole style of banjo playing that was popular at the turn of the century. The last turn of the century, I mean, not the most recent one, but the one before that. And banjo players ruled the world. And there was this movement to kind of upgrade the image of the banjo back then, which still goes on today, in point of fact. And basically coming out of the minstrel era, of course the horrible stereotypes of that time in the mid-1800s, in spite of that, the music at that time was wonderful and was derived from African-American sources. I'll just do this. I wasn't planning on doing this, but there's probably the earliest kind of banjo music was a tune called Juba, which was the name of a frenetic dance that was done in the West Indies by the slaves, and there was this kind of hand patting where you could hurt yourself if you're not careful. And it was also the name of the first black to dance in the minstrel shows. And just to kind of give you an idea how the music was developing, this appears in a lot of the earliest banjo books. And it's supposed to be played on a fretless banjo with gut strings and tuned much lower. But this will give you a flavor of how things were in the mid-1800s. In fact, let me do this. I'll also play the earliest example of black banjo music, dating from about 1850. Played by a street musician in Elmira, New York. That'll be the second tune. Well, that was again the African influenced style, but fingerpicking came in the 1860s. And I'm going to play a tune for you from about 1870. It's a tune called Recreation. Now, we're not talking about the Super Bowl. If you listen to this music, it doesn't reflect that kind of mentality. And this is the time, the 1870s on through the turn of the century, the banjo became a parlor instrument. Especially in the later 1800s, women were beginning to step out a little bit, and they were, in some cases, the more rakish of the women would be smoking cigarettes, riding bicycles, and in some cases even getting tattoos. And for these women who were really kind of on the cutting edge, they'd be playing not the flute or the piano, but yes, the banjo. And
When you hear this tune, you'll get a sense of that kind of a parlor feel. So this is called Recreation, written for the banjo. Genteel. And to give you just a further sense of kind of the attitude towards the banjo at this time, I'm going to read from the Banjo, a dissertation by S.S. Stewart, 1888, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. S.S. Stewart was a banjo nut, I guess you could say. He was just over the top, as you'll soon see when you hear this little reading. And he made banjos, he taught it, he wrote books, and just carried on as he does in this following little recitation. The banjo as a solo instrument is a success. When accompanied by the guitar or the piano, it is a decided success. When used as an accompaniment to the voice in singing, it is always attractive. It has ever been conceded an excellent accompaniment. When combined in numbers and sizes, banjos may be used with striking effect, formed into an orchestra or band. It also has other uses which many have not yet even dreamed of. One of them is as a medium for psychophysiological curative agency. Now, this may sound very strange to some of you, but instances of its usefulness in such direction are a matter of record. A few years ago, I preserved an account of a case where the banjo was a medium of curative power. I will here append it. It was clipped from a medical journal. A case is reported of a lady supposed to be dying of nervous exhaustion, being kept alive till she was fed and restored by the persistent efforts of her attendant village doctor, who, lacking any other musical instrument, performed unceasingly for 24 hours by her bedside on his banjo with appropriate gestures till his patient awoke not only to life, but to a sense of the ludicrous and revived in a fit of laughter. So, if you're in need of this physiological curative agency, please speak to me at the end of the evening. And so continuing on with this turn of the century thing, the splendor of the banjo at this time, I'm going to do a tune which is on this double banjo album I'm currently finishing up. And I played this with Bill Evans. Banjo tunes at this time came in a little folio, and you'd get it with a second banjo part or with a piano part. So Bill played the second banjo part. And this is called Banjoland, from about 1900, right about there.
into the economy of Boulder today. Bought a sandwich there. And most importantly, I like to give back, you know. More importantly, I acquired this beautiful nail here. I don't know if you all can see that. I'm going to play some clawhammer banjo stuff for you. And one of the things about playing clawhammer banjo, which is sometimes called frailing, is that you need a good fingernail to kind of act like a pick. If you don't have a good fingernail, it sounds a little weak, like that. With a good fingernail, hear the difference? What would you prefer? The latter, I think. So for you, because I give and I give and I give some more, I went into a nail place. Fortunately with my sister, which gave me a little cover, but you know, you go in there and the first time I ever did this, which was some years ago, it takes a lot of courage to walk into a nail place for a guy. At least the first time, at least for me it did. And this guy like spent 10 or 15 minutes, because I lost my nail last night, it just kind of broke off on the end. I don't want to just gross you out, but it was just the end of it. But I didn't have an effective nail. So this guy worked on me today. It was a guy in the nail place, which made me feel better, as you can understand. And he spent 10 or 15 minutes putting this beautiful nail on it. I think it's gorgeous. And how much do you think he charged me? $3. 15 minutes of work. If that's not a deal, I love Boulder. I mean, I'm going to come back often after this. I always like to point this out that you need a good nail to do this because Pete Seeger talks about this in his banjo book because exactly what happened to me doesn't have to happen. And Pete talks about this instance where he was doing some like carpentry work and was hammering in a nail, missed the nail, not the fingernail, the nail, but his fingernail on his index finger, his picking nail, and it turned black and fell off, the whole nail, but grew back much stronger. I mean, you can draw your own conclusions, and I always kind of refer to that as the G. Gordon Liddy method of nail and pencil, if you will. So I'm going to do a couple of clawhammer tunes because that whole parlor style of banjo just went away when Louis Armstrong came around with his hot fives in the 20s, and Duke Ellington carried on kind of the tradition with the banjo as did Louis Armstrong. They had some 6-string and 4-string banjos in the band, but this style of banjo playing was gone, but it had been kept alive in the Appalachian Mountains for years and just carried on there. So this is one of the styles very popular and still today in many ways. So I'm going to start off with Old Joe Clark and then go into Boatin' Up the Sandy. Thank you. Well, two people kind of brought the banjo back to its rightful place at the top of the charts. Well, to relative popularity, shall we say. One one of which, of course, was Pete Seeger, who in 1948 wrote his banjo book that I just mentioned. And he was with a group called the Weavers, which just won a Lifetime Achievement Award on the Grammys. It wasn't all the gloss and flash of the Grammys to have the Weavers, Fred Hellman, and Ronnie Gilbert accept that, but it was probably one of the most heartwarming parts of the Grammys. So a lot of people, including myself, got to hear Pete Seeger. Back then, I grew up listening to him because my parents listened to the Weavers and a group called the Almanac Singers that Pete was in, some solo albums. And we all often think of Pete kind of doing the sing-along thing, like everybody sing this. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Thank you. That was great. When I first started doing that, I was just sort of going to give a little example, just, you know, and then people really started singing along. Oh, so it's always like kind of a game of chicken. Do I play the whole thing or do I not? But you guys hung in there. Thank you. That was fun. So that's one way you think about Pete Seeger as a banjo player. You also think of him doing stuff like his basic strum. Which is the very first thing in his banjo book. And I was giving somebody a lesson and showing them this basic strum, which actually is really fun, and it's kind of a different way to do the clawhammer thing. It has a really nice feel to it. And the person I was teaching was saying, now, does Pete put both fingers down on the head? This is a banjo thing, like when you play bluegrass, to put, you know, Earls puts 2 fingers down on the head to kind of support the rest of his hand. So my student was saying, you know, does Pete put 2 fingers down on the head? And I looked it up in the book, and it didn't really say. I'm friendly with Pete, so I figured, well, I'll just call up Pete and see, you know, what the story is. So I called up Pete, and his wife Toshi answered the phone, and I said, "Hi, Toshi, it's Tony Trischka." "Oh, hi, how are you?" And I said, "I'd like to just, you know, have a quick word with Pete. I just have a quick banjo question to ask him." And she said, "Oh, he's in the bathtub right now." I said, "Well, it's all right. I won't bother him." No, it's fine. I'll take the phone to him. See if the cord stretches that far. You know, of course, it would be right that the Seegers would have a cord phone instead of a... But, so I said, no, it's okay. So she hands Pete Seeger the phone in the bathtub. "Hey, Pete, you look a little wet." "Well, I guess I am." And, you know, Pete and he starts talking. When you talk to Pete, he just kind of holds forth on all sorts of different subjects. And it's amazing. And after about 15 minutes, and I'm sure his water was getting cold, I said, "So Pete, do you put, you know, 1 or 2 fingers down on the head when you play the basic strum?" "Oh, that basic strum, I should never put that at the beginning of the book. That should be farther along." They started kind of going off on that, and then, no, I'm not sure. People say I put 2 fingers on the head, but I get so. I got this great, you know, 20-minute hang with Pete as he's freezing in the tub. But that's all beside the point, folks. And I'm going to play something else right now by Pete Seeger. And this is a tune that appears on his Goofing Off Suite album from 1955. I play this with every show I do because for people that just think about Pete doing the strumming thing and that basic strum, he was and still is one of the most amazing banjo players ever and way ahead of his time. This is his version, as close to note for note as I could get it, of Irving Berlin's Blue Skies. And feel free to sing along on the Blue Skies portion of it. It kind of goes into a swing thing after a while. So this is Blue Skies by Pete Seeger.
Earl Scruggs. He was the other one who put the banjo back on the map. He was playing with Bill Monroe back in 1945. And Lester Flatt, his partner-to-be, was already playing with Earl, and I had a chance to hang out with Earl on a couple of occasions. He mentioned that when he first was joining the Bluegrass Boys, and when Lester heard about this, he said, "Oh, we don't want to have a comedian in the band," because all the banjo players at that time were comedians. You had Uncle Dave Macon, who was basically kind of comedian and spun the banjo around. I could try that. No, I'm not going to try it tonight. He would sort of do things like that with the banjo. String Bean, who had already been playing with Bill Monroe, was a comedian, and so Lester Flatt assumed that, of course, this guy Earl Scruggs was going to be a comedian, and which, of course, he was a fairly serious guy on stage. And Uncle Dave Macon actually was hanging out backstage at the Grand Ole Opry with Earl Scruggs one time and was mentioning that he can pick real good, but he ain't a damn bit funny. And it didn't really seem to hurt Earl at all. I'm going to do a medley of Earl Scruggs tunes, and Pete and Joan had mentioned how Louise Scruggs had such a big influence on Earl Scruggs' career, and I talked to her a number of times over the last year or two, and she was mentioning some of the things that she had done, one of which was when the Beverly Hillbillies became a big hit. The original recording of that, the year on television, doesn't have Lester Flatt singing. It's this other guy, but it's Earl Scruggs' banjo. And Louise said, "This show's a big hit." And she called Columbia Records and said, "You guys should put out a single of Flatt and Scruggs doing this." So they did, and they put it out like within a week or two to get it right out there and capture the frenzy about the Beverly Hillbillies. And it went to the top of the charts. And then in 1963, I think it was, Flatt and Scruggs played at Carnegie Hall, which would have been, a nice footnote to their career. But she called Columbia Records and said, "Why don't you record the show and put it out on an album?" And Columbia Records said, "Well, how would we do that?" "Well, you get a tape machine in there and record the dang thing." And they did. And then the next year they played at Vanderbilt University, and in those days it was a big deal to play at a college concert for a bluegrass band. So same thing, she recorded that, and for all time there's Flatt and Scruggs at Vanderbilt College. And she said during the 50s, and Pete was mentioning this, that people would call up and Louise would answer the phone. "Hello, I'd like to talk to Earl, please." "Oh, what's this in reference to?" "Well, I'd just like to talk to Earl." "Well, can you tell me what this is in reference to?" "Well, I want to book the Foggy Mountain Boys." "Well, you can talk to me about that." "No, I'd rather talk to Earl." "Well, you can talk to me or you won't book the Foggy Mountain Boys." So she was tough, and she really deserves a lot of respect, and she was a very important person, just as a businesswoman in general in the 1950s. So we'll dedicate this to her. This is an Earl Scruggs medley, starting off with Nashville Skyline Rag. Well, actually, what do you want to hear? What Earl Scruggs tunes would you like to hear?
Groundspped.
I was going to do that anyway, so that's in there, yeah.
Foggy Mountain Special.
Foggy Mountain Special, okay.
Nashville Blues Breakdown.
Oh boy, okay, that's enough. I got to go into all these different tunings to do all these tunes, but it's Earl, so why not? Okay, I'll do Nashville Blues, right? Yeah. This is a slightly obscure Earl Scruggs tune, but one of his greatest tunes. I've been playing too much cheerful music, so this is something a little darker. Nashville Blues. I can medleyize the rest of these. So we have Earls Breakdown, Groundspped, Foggy Mountain Special. How many people were impressed with all that tuning stuff I was doing in the first tune? Shameless, give it to me now. Well, the thing is, when I first started doing this in these solo shows, and I do all this tuning stuff, and the truth is that there are these special stops on these pegs here, so you can have it go back and forth exactly. And I knew that, and I assumed everyone knew that. But in fact, probably some of you out here today didn't realize that. And people would like laugh when I do that. They go, "Oh my, how does he do that?" And I'm giving away a trade secret. See? Perfect every time. Earl Scruggs came up with a concept. He drilled holes in the headstock of what today would be like a $150,000 banjo to put these extra pegs in. To do that, which you really don't want to deface your banjo that way in this day and age. But this guy, Bill Keith, very influential banjo player, came up with this concept of just building them right into the pegs, which is what we have today, folks. But on the original recording of Earl's Breakdown, Earl did not use it. He just did it by ear, and you can hear him being a little flat when he comes up to one of the notes. So you can, if you listen really careful on the CD, you can hear him getting back in tune because he's in tune after that. But anyway, so here's the Earl Scruggs medley. Just have to have all the other strings in tune. That's the hard part. That's the subtle bluegrass way of checking the time. Can you stand a few more 16th notes? Okay. All right, good. that I wrote, some original tunes, that is. And this first one's called Lake Flora, and it goes into a tune that my son named called Rainbow Yoshi. Having nothing to do with Rainbow Yoshi. tune that I wrote recently, and one of the big worries you can have as an instrumental musician is breaking a string on stage. So I wrote a tune on one string, and I like to call it the first string. I have also written tunes on the second and third strings called the second and third strings. I have yet to write the fourth and fifth strings. I'm building up to that, waiting for the inspiration to hit. But this is one called the first string. I hope you enjoy it. It's always in tune. I'm not even going to check the other strings. Doesn't matter. Here's a tune I wrote for my daughter Zoe. It's called Zoe. I did a show for NPR about a year ago. The show's called The Next Big Thing, and basically they interview musicians and artists and actors and people in the arts in general, checking out what their works in progress are. and I decided to write 4 tunes, one for each of the different banjos that I was using at that point. And since I could only bring 2 of them with me on this trip, I'll play 2 of them for you. And this first one is dedicated to John Cowan, who is, I guess, occasionally still with the Vanilla City Ramblers, an amazing old-time musician and documentarian. He's made a couple of wonderful movies. He's a great photographer. It's called John Cowan's Blues.